Hi, my name is Andre and welcome at YourGuitarWorkshop.com. This is not a tutorial video, but this video is sort of inspired by a question that I got on one of my Tommy Emmanuel, like the Classical Gas series that I did, the tutorial. And Classical Gas is a pretty complex song. It took me a while to transcribe, and it took me a while to get like the parts into my fingers. And well, honestly, I never really played it the way it should be played. I mean, I got the notes right, but it didn't have the finesse yet. But everything that I did was, I needed to do that in a pretty short amount of time. Now, somebody commented on one of the later videos, like, you know, great that you're putting out these videos, but I'm still stuck at video number 1. So how do you tackle a song like Classical Gas or another complex tune? And that's a really good question, because there are a couple of ways to answer that question. So for instance, how I tackled this one was, first I had to transcribe it. So I had to listen to him playing it, and I looked at him playing it on the YouTube video, but there was, you know, it's mainly your ears that you're using. And I knew the song pretty well also, so I've listened to it before a lot, because I just love this version of it. So there's a lot of listening that went into learning the song already. And I think because I transcribed it on my own, it was a lot easier to learn bigger chunks, right? Because you're figuring it out with your ears, you're translating that to what you're doing on the guitar, instead of just having somebody tell you what it is or getting it from a tablature. Because when you get it from sheet music, it's a very different process. So when I don't know a tune, and I just do it from sheet music, and I listen to this song a couple of times when I'm working on it, it takes me so much longer to learn to play a certain song. But anyway, so the question was, how do you tackle it? I'm going to be assuming that a lot of you would be not transcribing, but are probably doing this using YouTube tutorials and or using tablature. When you're doing that, what I do is I try to turn those numbers into music as soon as possible. You want everything that you play to be musical as soon as possible. So for instance, with a song like Classical Gas, I would just focus on the first 2 bars. And I would play them until they would sound like they were played by Tommy Emmanuel, or they sound like it's music. Not sort of fumbling through it or kind of, no, you want those 2 bars to be super. You want them to be dead on. And then I would add 2 more bars. Or if you can work with a bit bigger chunks of music, like 4 bars, then you would do that. But so I would just do like a little bit, and then a little bit extra. So I would do the next 2 bars, and then I would combine those 2 bars and would practice that. Then I would have those 4 bars. Then I would work on the next 2 bars, and the next 2 bars, combine those, and then try to do the whole 8 bars. It's a slow process in the beginning. It's a lot slower than just learning the entire piece, right? But what I've seen with all of the students that I've had who would sort of first try to memorize the entire tune and then work on their technique is that you never just memorize the tune when you do it, right? So you're playing it as well. And if you're doing it without the right expression or without the right technique or the right fingering, or maybe it's not right, but the most ideal fingering for you, something like that, you are learning it like that. So that will become your default way of playing it. So it's very counterproductive, because then when you're like, okay, so now I'm ready to, to sort of, go into the finer detail of things, you've already sort of automated a lot of stuff that you don't want in there. And then you have to unautomate that. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So what I've seen with students of mine is that they would work on a tune like that, and they would never get it the way they want it to sound, ever. And basically because there's all these habits that are already in there, and it's just hard to get it out. It's once you've learned it in a certain way, it's really hard to unlearn it unless you put a lot of conscious effort into it. The trouble with that is that, then later I wonder, so what is easier, Isn't it easier then to sort of do it right from the beginning, just in small chunks, immediately learning it by heart, not reading from a page, which is what I do. And personally, for me, that's my ideal way of learning new songs. So you may have a different opinion. So if you do, please put that in the comments below, because I'd love to hear from you as well. And I don't mind trying new things. And there is another thing that happens when you do it like in small bits, is that right from the beginning you're aiming to memorize the tune, right? So I don't read those 2 bars. I just look at them and I'm like, okay, so that's how it's played. I go to the guitar and I start playing. Is it correct? Okay, it's correct. What happens is that my mindset is that it has to be memorized. And my brain picks up on that. And now when I work on new tunes, my brain is sort of geared towards memorization, right? So it just knows that, okay, this stuff is in front of him now, and this needs to be stored somewhere, somehow, as fast as possible, because we're going to be using it a lot in the coming hours. That's just how my brain is wired. I'm pretty sure it wasn't like that in the beginning, but that was just my approach to learning to play the guitar. Listening to something and trying to play it, and always trying to do it from memory. So, and by the way, I'm not saying that reading isn't a good skill, but you wouldn't read tablature. It's not, then if you're going to be reading something, it would be standard notation. But for these complex tunes where there is so much information in such a short amount of time, memorization is essential. So my advice would be, for a song like this, work with very small pieces. Every piece, you want it to be perfect. Well, perfect, you want it to sound musical before you move on to the next and add that and loop that, add the next, right? And that also brings me to another point that I actually forgot that I wanted to mention in the beginning, is that knowing which song is the right step up for you is another part of the process. And sometimes, unfortunately, we find out during a song that, oh my goodness, this is way too advanced for me. If it's just 1 or 2 places, you can sort of, be creative and play it a bit differently, and then the rest you can sort of keep the way it is played originally. But recognizing whether a tune is a good step up or if it's too much of a leap is pretty important, because you don't want to get into something that's just going to cause you a lot of frustration. Frustration is not a good learning environment. You want to be inspired, you want to be passionate, and that's when your brain is soaking everything up. So this is sort of to quickly address that question, how do you tackle a complex song? And that would be the first part of it. Another part of it could be that, you know, if there is a lot of stuff in there that you don't understand, for instance, if somebody's playing certain arpeggios or a lot of scales, or if it's for lead guitar, practicing scales or arpeggios makes it a lot easier to learn new stuff, because when you're playing the song, you can super quickly categorize, oh, he's just playing this arpeggio here, oh, he's just playing that scale here, oh, this is just a run in C major, oh, this is just, you know, A harmonic minor, or, you know, B dominant arpeggio. It's a lot easier to store things, because you can sort of categorize it a lot easier, right? This group of 8 notes goes in this box, this group of 8 notes goes in that box, and so on. So you're sort of chunking the information a little bit that way, instead of just seeing it as one big thing that you have to learn. So hopefully this is helpful. Like I said, if you have any tips of your own, put them in the comments below. And that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again sometime. Bye.